and welcome to the debut episode of All 90s Action All the Time, a podcast that sets out to look at every 90s action movie going through the 90s careers of one action star at a time. I'm your host, Scott Murphy, and joining me on this journey will be Bloodhound Picks, Greg Jaheim, Kyle Joseph Hintz, and Josh James Lee, who will be, and on this season of the podcast, we will be looking at the 90s career of one Steven Seagal. Now, before we get into it, over the course of the show, we will probably cover a bunch of people who are pretty problematic, and Steven Seagal definitely falls into that category, particularly given the various sexual misconduct claims made against him over the years. So please, in no way, see this as an endorsement of the man himself. We may enjoy the guilty pleasure goodness of his movies, but we have no love or respect for the real life person behind it. And I understand and respect that some people might not be able to make that separation, and that's all cool. With that said, let me tell you what you can expect from this first season of All 90s Action All the Time. Well, Seagal made a total of 10 pictures in the 90s, 9 of which we will be giving you plot breakdowns of. Why 9? Well, because Seagal's role in Executive Decision really amounts to a cameo, and we plan to cover that in a later Kurt Russell season. On today's episode, we are going to look at 1990's Hard to Kill, which was only Steven Seagal's second picture after 1988's Nico, or Above the Law, depending where you're from. The film was directed by Bruce Malmuth, who is sadly no longer with us, having passed away in 2005, and notable credits include the early 1980s Stallone actioner Nighthawks and the 90s Dolph Lundgren actioner Pentathlon, which, yes, we may cover later on in the show. And it was written by Steve Mackay, whose only other notable credit I could find was for Darkman 2, The Return of Durant. Hard to Kill currently holds a 5.8 on IMDb, 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 41% on Metacritic. Eek. Now, before we delve into this action masterpiece, I want to know if my co-host for today, Kyle, has seen this one before, which I'm going to go ahead and presume that he very much has. Kyle?
Yes, I have. Yes, I feel like maybe it's the fourth time I've seen it. I know I watched it twice this week.
And when did you first see it?
I don't know if I can. I know it was when I was a kid, probably like 10 or 11 or something like that.
That's probably around the age I first saw it as well. Okay, so shall we do this? Shall we dive into the plot of this particular Seagal masterwork?
Let's do it.
So we open. It's nighttime. Steven Seagal is holding a massive camera as an undercover cop to film the plotting of a hit of a senator. And the kind of characters that are plotting this hit are in shadow. He knows one of them is like a kind of mafioso guy, but he doesn't know who the other one who's actually ordering the hit is. And then he gets spotted by the various people planning this hit, and but before that, he does manage to take out a guy, which from the perspective of how it's filmed looks like he does in plain sight in front of the assembled company, but they don't see him like beat up a guy, which is a bit confusing. Did you see that?
They kind of changed the geography, and then all of a sudden they're like around the corner of something. Can't see where they were.
Now, I know this opening is supposed to be in 1983, but like, surely there could have been. Did they not have any smaller cameras that he could have been recording this on? I don't know. Like, I don't know the history of like. It just felt like oversized. It felt like he was filming the news. with the Camry.
Yeah, all I could think watching it in context of today too is like in real life, just reading stories about cops that don't have working cameras now in 2020 or whatever, or like dash cameras and things. And I'm like, this guy has just the most high-tech camera to do the surveillance that no one knows about. You find out later.
Yeah. And I don't know if Steven Seagal in his own mind, and we know what a kind of egotistical guy Steven Seagal is, but if he ever thought that winning an Oscar was a possibility. But for some reason, the opening of this film is on Oscar night, 1983, yes, as there is no less than 4 references to the Oscars in the opening 10 minutes. One of his first lines that Steven Seagal says is, I'm missing the Oscars. Up, guys. I'm missing the Oscars for this.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's like my favorite. Because it seemed like it's going to be a throwaway line too. And then it just keeps coming back up, that reference. And you're like, what? Why are you guys talking about the Oscars?
Yeah, I've seen this movie a few times, and every time it cracks me up that it's just like you say, you think like, oh, this is just one of those kind of action movie one-liners and it'll never be mentioned again. But then he has a phone call with his police captain to phone in that he's made this tape. And he says, like, well, maybe we'll win our own little Academy Award for this. And then he goes into a liquor store and says to the guy behind the counter, hey, why aren't you watching the Oscars? And at this point, you're thinking, what the fuck is this film's obsession with the Oscars?
Right. Well, after that scene, after that fight that we'll get into, when he's like, everything's settled, some other cop is like, well, it looks like you won the Oscar that time.
Yeah, it looks like you won your own Oscar tonight, Storm. We should also mention in the many hilarious names that Steven Seagal characters has, he is a Mason Storm in this one, which might be his most over the top name. There's a few other corkers that will be on parade in the rest of the season, but it's high up there anyway.
Yeah, that's a pretty great. It just parodies itself. It's perfect.
I also found out while doing a bit of background research that the original title for this film was going to be 7 Year Storm, which is kind of a cooler title, but also I can see marketing-wise why that wouldn't really work.
Yeah, it doesn't. Hard to Kill is so much better. That is a good title, but it isn't it's not cheesy enough.
No. And I suppose it's very clear what Hard to Kill is. It's not very clear what 7 Year Storm is.
True, yeah.
Unless you know the plot of the movie. Which is not how marketing works.
No.
But anyway, yes, we should get into after he runs away and after he calls it in, of course, to celebrate good undercover work well done, he goes to the liquor store to try and get some champagne, which is then immediately held up by some gunmen. And this is clearly like a kind of just a pointless action padding scene, but it's one of the highlights of the movie, so must be mentioned.
Yes, it feels like a scene that Seagal was like, I think I need to kick some more ass in the beginning of this movie. And they're like, no, you just get champagne to move the plot along. And he's like, no, some guys are going to rob this place. That's what's going to happen.
So the guys enter a store. They rob the place. The guy who's like the chief robber, he has his own cheesy action movie line, which makes no sense because he says to the guy after shooting the kind of guy behind the desk in the shop, the shop attendant. He says, now you've only got half a mind, which would work if he shot him in the head, but he didn't. He shot him in the chest.
Yeah, I don't even remember that line, but yeah, that's a terrible one-liner.
Also, Seagal, entirely confident that he can beat these fools up. Just watch the guys get shot. He should have, I just feel like he should have intervened earlier in the process.
Yeah, he didn't give a shit about that guy getting killed. I think the reason he didn't care is because that guy wasn't watching the Oscar.
Yeah, no, that was a big sticking point for him. Yeah, he was pretty annoyed about that. They had they had a whole conversation about it. But then he beats all the guys up. And just to show how tough he is, after disarming the lead robber who he kills, he then beats up the other two guys, and then there's a fourth guy who has a knife, and Seagal proceeds to put down the gun he has in his hand, and then, as further insult, like goes down on his knees and is like, "Yeah, now come at me. Now it's totally fair." And of course, the guy lunges at him with a knife, and he proceeds to just fuck him up and snap his ankle off.
And right before he puts the shotgun down, he has to have phallic domination. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. He just holds that shotgun like right at his crotch, and he's just like, "Mine's bigger than yours." All right, I'll put it away. It's like, okay.
Yes, this movie has something of a dick obsession too. There's like a few, there's a few references to big and small anatomy, peppered throughout.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am like so yeah, that's a fun little scene. And like I have to say, it certainly does pack a lot into its like opening 10 minutes, because like yeah, that all happens within the first 10 minutes of the movie. Because I remember like looking at the time, he gets back to his house where his wife and kid is, like just under 10 minutes into the film. So like that's a pretty good action movie opening, I gotta say.
Yeah, it really is. It's and we were talking about this off air in terms of the second half or the middle of the movie, but yeah, it kind of does set a high pace that it doesn't keep up.
So yeah, at that point, obviously the main plot of the movie kind of kicks in, because like he gets back to the house and we see him hide the film footage in his fridge for some reason. That seems like the obvious place to hide undercover cop film footage.
Which is weird too, because he does call his captain and say they're the only ones that know about this, but maybe he should have taken that film to the station or like somewhere more secure.
I have to say, given Seagal's notable weight issues over the length of his career, I was very amused that his of line to his wife about what he was doing was that it was like, I've given up on my diet for Lent. I'm just raiding the fridge.
Just seeds of his downfall. Yeah. He didn't even know.
It's only his second film, and he's already predicting his own downfall.
That and the Oscar line of him missing the Oscars. If only he knew. Yeah, you're never gonna make it to the Oscars.
Ah, dear. Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, his wife not such a big fan of the Oscars because his wife's watching the Carson show.
Good point. Yeah, that would have probably been a sticking point had she not been murdered a couple minutes later.
Yeah, that probably would have caused an argument. They were like, "Why aren't you watching the Oscars?" "Oh, I like Carson." "Oh well." Divorce.
It seems weird that all the people watching the Oscars are cops too. I just feel like blue collar cops would not give a shit about the Oscars.
Yeah, that was my opinion. Like, I was like, no, I mean, like, if it was, I don't know, if it was like Monday Night Football, I could have bought into that. I could have been like, yeah, I could imagine like a police station, like tuning into that. Fair. Okay. But the Oscars? I just can't imagine like a group of cops like sitting around like, oh, get the popcorn out. This Oscar night.
Yeah. I wonder. Yeah. I feel like that's another, I feel like you can see the things that are Steven Seagal suggestions. For some reason, he's like, we got to talk about the Oscars.
Yeah. I could imagine. I could imagine. Apparently, like, I did read, again, doing some background research, that he did butt heads with the director a lot and the kind of decision making. I think he wasn't happy with a lot of the way the fight scenes were filmed, and also because he's obsessed with controlling his career, he was not happy that he got locked out the editing room by the director. He had no control of the edits, and it's one of the only pictures in his early pictures he doesn't have a producer credit.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
it's surprising that it's only a second movie and he is trying to be in, I guess maybe he had more control in the first one, but it seems like he's very involved.
He is very involved. Yeah.
So new of an action star.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So it seems that, you know, his career right from the off, he had a very clear idea of what he wanted his career to be. And it seems like he had quite a lot of creative freedom, like right from early days. Like, you know, yeah, he is a producer and above the law. And like, I remember reading there's from, I think it was an article by Verne, who wrote a book on Steven Seagal. He was saying of his first 7 films, this was his only one that he didn't receive a producer credit. Anyway, I suppose we should get back to the plot. At this point, with just inevitability, a gang invade his house and come to kill him, his wife, and his child. They successfully managed to kill his wife, and they shoot him a bunch. And as we discussed off air before we start recording, he is shot by a shotgun twice. But that doesn't stop him. He's still moving forward. He comes at a guy. He kicks him in the nuts. He breaks his wrists. He throws him about a bit, despite the bullet wounds in him. And he has to be shot a further 2 more times before collapsing next to his dead wife in a kind of tragic pose.
So yeah, his whole family is shotgunned down except his son, I guess. It did feel like pretty quick for those mobsters to mobilize and without hesitation go murder a cop and his family. And then they just shoot Seagal so many times and his wife shotgun so many times, and then just decide that we'll just throw some bags of cocaine around the bedroom, and that's like gonna ruin his reputation. I guess no one's gonna investigate this. They're just going to assume he got what was coming to him because he's dealing coke or something.
Well, yeah. I mean, we later find out that basically everyone's corrupt, though. Like, so I think that's why they're so confident of that, because it seems that, yes, the whole police department, apart from Mason Storm himself and his good friend over at Internal Affairs, O'Malley, who will be introduced very soon, are the only clean cops in the city, basically.
Yeah, that is true. So that does, it makes sense in this world.
I mean, not much, you know, I mean, like, in terms of reality, there's not much going on connected to reality. The thing that entertains me is like this film is clearly so preposterous, and the thing that kind of led to Seagal's kind of rise to fame was this kind of reputation of making kind of lower down, grittier action picks than his kind of 80s predecessors like the Stallones and Schwarzeneggers. It wasn't as over the top, but in many ways it's just as over the top.
Yeah, it really is. It's not really, maybe it's like more violent.
I think that's what people think about when they're mentioning that, the kind of grittiness. Like, in terms of plot, they're not gritty at all. It's just like there's extra violence there. There's like, in terms of like the kind of bone snapping action.
Yeah. Well, and like even them trying to shotgun his kid immediately feels like that probably wouldn't happen in another movie. It just seems like without hesitation, they're just like, oh, there's that kid, and they just fire like 4 rounds at him.
That's a fair point. Like, I feel like in a lot of other action movies, there would have been at least one goon where they're like, who says like, "Oh, can we kill a kid? We can't kill a kid, can we?" Yeah. But no, everybody's like, "No, kill that fucking kid." Yeah,
they don't give a shit.
So yeah, that's Mason Storm. That's Mason Storm. He's pretty much dead. He is announced dead, and everybody thinks he's dead. But we found out that O'Malley is told by one of the doctors that actually he's come back to life after briefly being dead. And then O'Malley, the only other honest cop in the city, hides his identity. Hides the fact that he's come back to life, and hides him away until he can come back with the evidence that will take Senator Trent. We don't know at that point that the senator is the villain, and he's not a senator at this point. He's just like William Sadler is the bad guy, And at that point, he's like a lawyer stroke assemblyman who gives a big speech about how much he very much loved Mason Storm.
Very good actor.
Yeah, but William Sadler actually.
Yeah, he really is.
He's really he's really good. He's really good. In a year's time, he'll make Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and he's amazing in that.
Yes, he is. He's amazing in the new one too.
Yeah, he's real good. I wish there had been more William Sadler in Bill and Ted Face the Music.
I agree. Yeah. They also, so when they say that Steven Seagal's actually not dead, they also just do that like right in the middle of the hospital hallway. Like I felt like you could have just taken the guy aside. You could have made that a little bit more plausible because I'm like, someone could have just overheard. There were like all these other crooked cops just walked out the room.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie. Nobody sees shit, nobody hears shit. This is a recurring theme.
Yeah. But that guy, Frederick Coffin O'Malley, he is great, by the way, too. He's like perfect for this movie. He's the perfect cop partner guy that just is very loyal. And his whole introduction is amazing when they're like, some other cops are talking shit about Mason Storm, and he's like the best guy I've ever worked with. And he's just perfect for this movie.
Oh yeah, I can't remember exactly what his line is when he roughs that guy up, but he's like, it's something like, if I hear you say that puke again, I'll lose my I'll be happily lose my badge to do what I want to do to you.
Yes.
Oh man, what a line. But by the way, listener, if you're tuning in and you think like, wow, you're spending quite a long time on this opening segment of the movie, there is a big chunk of the movie where nothing happens, and we'll go over that quite quick. So like, don't worry. So after that, after he's been hidden away, we cut to 7 years later. It is now 1990 when the film's being made, and we cut to Mason Storm in his coma bed with possibly the worst beard in cinematic history. I mean, it's as convincing as the kind of glue-on beard they give the puppet in Team America when he goes undercover as Ahmed. That's the level of beard we're talking about, listener.
It's a perfect revenge beard. I mean, there's no you just look at that beard and you know there's 7 years of vengeance that's been growing on his face.
Yeah. Yeah, we later find out that Nurse Andy, played by his then wife Kelly LeBrock, gave him this horrendous beard as some kind of sick joke.
Yeah, which is funny because I don't know. I'm just like, I think that's just the way your facial hair grows, Steven Seagal. You just can't grow a good beard. It's not her fault.
At least they have a good laugh about it later on. And then, yes, her character, Kelly LeBrock's character introduction is weird.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through how her character is introduced?
Yeah. Yes, I do. She's working in the Coma Research Center of Southern California, I think her tag says, and talking about her favorite patient who she has a crush on, Steven Seagal, a 7-year coma patient with a terrible beard that she's in love with, apparently. And she checks in with him, and she knows he's going to get out of his coma, and he can hear her. But yeah, she brings over she says, "Would you like a little pussy or something?"
Yeah. And
then reveal a kitten that she puts on him, which I like to think is the impetus for him coming out of the coma.
Well, actually, it appears I thought the impetus for him coming out of coma is the line directly after that, where she lifts up his cover. Clearly, he's apparently pretty much naked underneath, and she looks directly at his junk and goes, "You have so much to live for," and then goes, "Please wake up." So I was imagining that compliment to his anatomy was what brought Steven Seagal out of his coma.
You're probably right. I think any appeal to Steven Seagal's ego will move mountains.
And then, talking about Oscars, we talked a lot about Oscars.
Yes.
Man, Steven Seagal coming out of a coma. I have literally just in my notes just wrote acting! Like, it's the way he just kind of jerks around and his eyes roll up into the back of his head and he's flailing about. It's just,
I
Daniel
think it's.
Day-Lewis, eat your heart out.
I was gonna say, I think it's some of his best acting. It's probably the only time he's acting in the movie. I think that everything else is what Steven Seagal thinks he actually is.
Oh yeah, like I think you're right. I think it's the only time he like attempts actual acting that's not just like the Steven outside of just the Steven Seagal persona where he just looks tough all the time and cracks the occasional one-liner. So basically Seagal after that is kind of caught up with events and the kind of gangsters and all the corrupt cops very quickly hear about Steven Seagal's in this hospital, and again, very quickly arrange an assassination attempt.
Which is, you know, what's ironic about that? Thinking about it is like, why didn't you guys just like take him off the breathing machine in that last 7 years? Wouldn't that have been easier?
Of all the kind of plot holes that exist in this movie, I think this is explained because I don't think they actually know he's in that hospital until Kelly LeBrock phones the police department and tries to ask for O'Malley. And then
Good point.
At that point, they just like the penny drops that like, the coma patient, 7 years. I think 7 years ago we tried to kill Mason Storm. It must be Mason Storm. Yeah, like I don't know. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they're just like automatically assumed that must be Mason Storm. He's the only person who's been in a 7-year coma.
Well, yeah, I think that's where it gets where it stops making sense is because if they didn't know he was, so they technically supposedly don't know he's been alive this 7 years. But the moment they find out he's alive, there's no like surprise that he's alive. It's like they were waiting. They're just like, oh, we didn't know you were still alive, but oh, now we got to go kill you right now.
Yeah, that is true. Again, I feel like a lot of movies would have had at least one character being like, Mason Storm's alive?
Yeah.
But no, it's just like, go get him. And then we just get like, basically one of the cops who was also one of the assassins at the beginning of the movie and who really, really dislikes Mason Storm. He's got like a real thing against him. This is the kind of henchman that seems to hate him the most. Goes off to the hospital and we get like a hilarious chase sequence. Do you want to take us through this hilarious chase sequence, Kyle, of yes. Steven Seagal in his coma bed manages to get away from assassin?
It's a wonderful sequence. He's also like right before this, as the doctor assassin arrives, Steven Seagal's getting his physical therapy massage from this guy. And there's a great moment where like the guy's massaging, Steven Seagal's trying to tell everyone he's in danger. And that guy's massaging him. And Steven Seagal says something like, oh, thank you so much for like massaging me, but we got to get out of here.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He has some weird line like that where you're like, what? So this doctor shows up. He finds out where Steven Seagal's room is and gives the receptionist like a flower, kind of creepily. And they're like, I've never seen this doctor before. Mm-hmm. So a security guard goes to follow up and ask him for his ID. And he kills that security guard shoots him with a silencer. Then the masseuse comes in the room or something.
Just a quick thing on that as well. Again, in the running theme of people not seeing shit, the doctor assassin has the gun hidden behind his back. The security guard comes from behind him. The doctor corrupt cop assassin then turns around and then reveals from behind his back he's got a gun.
There's no accounting for reality.
Yeah, we shouldn't place too much reality on this film at all. I don't think it's beyond it. It's beyond it. We shouldn't try and bear any logic on the plot. But anyway, continue. After he kills the masseuse guy, and what happens next, Kyle?
Then. Well, I don't remember the whole part of it. I remember Kelly LeBrock shows up, and that kind of scares the doctor assassin from crossing the hall to get to Seagal. But yeah, so then Seagal is feebly wheeling himself towards the elevator in his hospital bed, and manages to get into the elevator and wheel away. And Kelly LeBrock ends up helping him, pushing him out of the hospital. And there's a part where he has a mop. Where
he's assisted by a mop. There's like a kind of sliding door. He manages to scoot behind a sliding door.
That's what it is.
That shuts out the assassin, and then he scoots with the mop into a lift. And then after getting past the sliding door, he manages to press the button of the lift with the mop just in time for the lift door to slam in the guy's face as well, foiling him once again.
Well, and I remember there's like at least a beat where the assassin is like afraid of Kelly LeBrock seeing him after he just casually killed 2 other people. And I'm like, you could have just shot her and then got Seagal. I don't know what's stopping you.
Yeah. No, that whole scene kind of doesn't make sense, because like he's trying to be kind of stealthy. He does the same thing with the massage guy. He's like, he like tries to act like he's like a legit doctor and be like, come and help me. This guy's injured. And then he's just like, nah, fuck you, he's dead, and you're dead too. Like,
I think they had to hammer home that he's the villain, if we didn't know.
Yeah, just in case we weren't aware. We definitely know now that he's a bad guy, even though we've already seen him in a few scenes. So we're pretty aware, and we were aware because he's one of the corrupt cops listening to the call. He dobs him in originally, and then he's like, we see him get sent out to the hospital. So, but yes, just to really rub it in our faces that this guy's proper evil. And yeah, after that, they escape the hospital and they go to a massive mansion of a place that apparently Kelly LeBrock's house sitting, and the movie comes to a standstill.
Yes, it does. Yeah, but we do get some of the best moments in the movie because Seagal starts to train and learn how to use his muscles again. He overcomes his 7 years in a coma really quickly. But he has that great, like, somewhere shortly after they get there, I think it's like the first night they're there when they're eating or whatever, and he tells her, he has his little monologue. He writes something in Chinese, and she's like, how do you know how to write Chinese? And he's like, I grew up in the Orient. And being the only white boy there, I had to learn to fight. And he's telling like just this great story about his karate training or whatever.
Yeah, that was pretty fun, and that's where we get to learn that Kelly LeBrock did his beard, and they have a big laugh about it. They like, throw their heads back. It's hilarious.
Yes,
and yeah, the main things that happen in this section of the movie is we get like a couple of training montages, and I have to say, as much as the kind of plot basically comes to a standstill, the training montages are very funny, because one is, obviously, again, we can't bear any logic on this movie, but like, yeah, Steven Seagal basically overcomes this coma quicker than the bride does in Kill Bill Volume 2, which is, again, is no, not Volume 2, Volume 1?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Kill Bill, and that's pretty unrealistic in itself. And yeah, apparently just some Chinese herbs and some acupuncture in your coma will just wear right off. But the training montages are really quite funny because like they're really kind of weak, like he's really. Yeah. I mean, like I am about 5'8", 55 kilos, and I could lift that dumbbell he benches. And he's like sweating with it, just being like, oh my God, I can't lift anymore. That's weight.
Yes. I do love when he straps a rope around a board that he sticks into the ground so he can practice punching it.
Oh, and yeah, then, that's pretty good.
And then Kelly LeBrock watches him training and he fucking punches the board out of the ground or whatever. And she's just like, Mason Storm.
What a guy. And this is one of many instances in Seagal's career where we see that he has like the worst run in human history. Like
I'm so glad you pointed that out, because watching it today, I was like, he's running really weird. Like his steps are really close together. Like it's almost like he's running on his tiptoes. I was like, that's strange.
Yeah, his arms look really weirdly kind of like they're numb or something. They're just kind of hanging at the side. And yeah, like you say, his kind of steps are too close together. He has a really strange run. And there's like, they have like 2 training montages, and he runs in both. The second training montages, he runs all the way up a hill, and it's really quite funny because like I just don't know where he learned to run. Like how he came to that run.
This is where they missed like gold in this movie, because if we had made this movie, I would have had someone say, "Hey, you kind of run funny," and he'd be like, "That's because I've never had to run away from a fight or something."
Oh yeah, for sure.
But no, they missed out on that.
Yeah, they did. Unfortunately, I would have loved that, because that's exactly the kind of thing Steven Seagal would say.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not a whole, in this whole kind of segment of the movie, we get like not a whole lot more plot wise. Just things happen. Obviously, Kelly LeBrock becomes the love interest. He gets over, the fact that his death of his wife.
He's not too bothered by the death of his wife.
Yeah, no, there's a really funny moment where basically Kelly LeBrock and Steven Seagal, one of the very few sex scenes in Steven Seagal movies, it's done in this kind of tasteful softcore lighting, and we don't really see anything because it immediately cuts to kind of some red candles, and we just we just know from the sexy sax that's going on that they're getting it on. And then he has a brief moment where he flashes after that, post-coitus. He has a flashback to times with his wife. Like, oh, I'm so guilty. I was like, yeah, you're real guilty, Steven.
Yes.
Fuck you.
I also love that what precedes that is kind of the end of his training montage, and Kelly LeBrock just shows up in his like makeshift dojo, totally glammed up with a flower. Like, I just thought maybe you'd want a flower.
That's right.
Like, really?
Yeah. What would she say that before that? It's something like, oh, I was just walking by or something, or I was just passing.
That's another like one of many moments where you'd feel like Steven Seagal swooped in to rewrite the scene. Like, no, she brings me a flower.
Yeah. And there is there's like a couple of action stars who like have sexual chemistry with like on-screen sexual chemistry. Like Jean-Claude Van Damme's good at on-screen sexual chemistry. He's looks like he's been with a human woman before. Other action stars are more awkward. I mean, like to be fair, like there's plenty of other action stars who are much more awkward. Like I've seen like Stallone is also another one where when he has to do like a kind of action movie romance where the woman's swooning over him, he's terrible at that. Like the kind of romance with Adrian and stuff, the Rocky movies, great. So you can kind of do that, but like anything that's supposed to be steamy, terrible. Steven Seagal, equally so, terrible. Like you're just like, have you been in a relationship? Like what? There's no spark here. I mean, you guys are fucking married. Like.
I think it's because he can't let his his ego thing go. Because like Van Damme seems like he has a lot more self-awareness and like a sense of humor. But like Seagal, you can't see him. I don't know. All you see is the Seagal face, like he's gonna kill someone, no matter what scene it is.
That is true. Just that blank, like yeah. He's an interesting screen presence because I feel like he has like an almost anti-charisma. He's just this static point, and he's weirdly compelling to watch despite that.
Yeah, he really is. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's something I don't know why you want to watch him, but you do.
I mean, so like, yeah, like I say, it's just the sheer over the topness. I just think it's just there's something hilarious about him that even doing the most ridiculous lines, saying, performing the most preposterous things, and he's always so serious about everything, and he's like you say, he's just so completely unself-aware that there's something very funny about that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And there's also something like way early when he was talking to the guy in the liquor store about the Oscars. There's something even when he's like joking with people where he just still, it seems like there's a lot of anger underneath it. Like when he's being sarcastic and stuff, he just still seems like he's going to kill someone.
Oh yeah. I think I couldn't agree more. I think even, yeah, like you say, even when he's like jokingly kind of taunting the guy in the store, like the scene that we mentioned earlier about like, oh look, mine's bigger than yours, and all that. There's just this real aggression to it.
Yeah.
He's not a playful person. He doesn't know how to do playful, and yeah, there's something very amusing about that. So yeah, there's not a whole lot going on plot-wise. Basically, O'Malley reappears, and because Kelly LeBrock goes on some side mission and basically goes to a retirement home and talks to somebody who turns out to be O'Malley's mum, who passes on a message, and O'Malley comes back and is like, "Oh, O'Malley, where you been?" And at this point, apparently because O'Malley's just been too goddamn honest, he's had to retire from the police force in disgust.
That's how it happened. O'Malley's got some great scruff going on, and he's just been waiting to resume this revenge mission, it seems like.
He again, like Kelly LeBrock, really confident he was going to come out of this coma. It's just really, he just had real faith that this was going to happen, that this day would come.
And then he gives, I can't remember the line he has. He has some weird line though when he opens like a briefcase and he's like, "I thought you would want this," and he pulls out a gun and some bullets to give to Steven Seagal. And Steven Seagal like, "You were not wrong, my friend. You were not wrong." And he loads the gun. And then Steven Seagal has the best line, my favorite line in the movie. O'Malley says something like, it's going to be difficult or whatever. And Seagal says, "We're outmanned and we're undergunned, but we're going to win. And you want to know why? Because superior mind, superior attitude," or whatever.
Yeah, superior attitude, superior state of mind.
Yes. And it's like, really? That's how it works? You're going against a bunch of heavily armed henchmen and there's two of you? I don't think that's how it works.
Well, apparently that's exactly how it works.
Yeah. Turns out I'm wrong.
I love the way he delivers that line. It's like you say.
Yes.
Superior attitude, superior state of mind. Yeah, that's how it works. Totally. Yeah, I'm on board. And then again, we get another weird scene because by this point, the kind of identity of the man on the tape has been clearly established by now Senator Trent. It's been, he's obviously the one behind it. We all know that. We think that Steven Seagal knows that by this stage, but then at this point, there's like a scene where he hears a bunch of voices in his head and of like scenes that have gone on throughout the movie, and he remembers a scene where he was still had his coma beard and he was just wandering around the house listening to the telly, just after Geraldo was on and Senator Trent came on, and he says his signature catchphrase like, "And you can take that to the bank." And so the movie implies that the penny has only just dropped in this scene, that he realizes that Senator Trent is the one behind it all, even though we were convinced earlier on in the film that he had figured that out. But it does also lead to the other best line in the movie, where Again, this line would have been more effective if he had actually said it to a character, but to a blank television while sitting on the end of a bed. He says, in retort to Senator Trent's catchphrase, "You can take that to the bank. I'm going to take you to the bank, Senator Trent, the blood bank." And it's amazing.
It is. That's the most goddamn amazing line in someone's second movie, because you're like, that is so comedic. It's so over the top.
And again, it's the blank face expression. It's the sheer solemnity in which he says it. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's gold.
Oh dear. And we get another weird moment. Like this film, actually, the more you think about it, the more this film is actually filled with weird moments, because we get another weird moment just kind of after that, where Kelly LeBrock's nurse Andy comes back home distraught, because she's just realized that her friend, her fellow nurse Martha, has been assassinated by Senator Trent's goons. And she comes home in floods of tears. But then Steven Seagal gives her a hug, and the sexy sax music from the sex scene comes back, and you're like, why?
That's all it takes, man. Superior state of mind.
Superior state of mind. Yeah, it's just like I know your friend's dead, but remember how sexy I am? But and it seems to work for her. It seems to, like Kelly LeBrock immediately over the death of her friend right after that. So yeah, again, superior state of mind wins, and we're wrong once again.
And then we jump right into the henchman showing up, right?
Oh yeah. So stuff starts happening again. Basically, after the plot just stopping and we're all just having a relaxing training montage time in this house, and we can all kick our feet up while Kelly LeBrock goes on a few side missions that don't really add much to anything. Apparently, there's a longer cut of this movie. Apparently, the Warner Brothers cut quite a lot out of this movie. So there was an opening scene with the wife and kids, and Kelly LeBrock's nurse friend, she gets interrogated and gets killed on screen rather than just Kelly LeBrock finding out about it. And apparently there's a bunch of other things. I don't know if that would make the movie any better, or it would just slow things down more and make it a worse movie. But yeah, there's a lot of editing went on.
Probably for the better. I feel like it would slow it down a lot.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to see any more of Kelly LeBrock's side missions that just kind of drag on.
No.
Anyway, action happens, and the film gets exciting again. Oh, it's good times. And we get a bunch of fun as various goons come to attack the amazing holiday home that Kelly LeBrock is house sitting. Really, just a palace of a house. I don't know, that doctor must be making a lot of money. Anyway, yes, couple of great Steven Seagal moments happen here. One of the goons gets thrown off a balcony into a table. And then another goon, again armed with a knife, comes at Steven Seagal, but that's a big mistake, because he snapped that fucker's arm in half before then throwing him through a glass bookcase. Oh, it's a sweet moment.
My favorite kill is the one a little bit after that, when they are in the Jeep, they're making their escape, and Steven Seagal's running people over, basically. And there's a gazebo shrine thing with a golden Buddha statue. Yeah. And Steven Seagal zooms right in front of it and runs a henchman over.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, there's two henchmen. There's one who kind of he almost looks like he's kind of jumping out the way, but he gets run over, and then he just kind of flies to the side, and then one just gets plowed right through the gazebo. It's amazing.
And then when they're driving away, there's large bullet holes in the windshield, right in front of Seagal and LeBrock's faces. I'm just kind of how did you dodge those bullets?
Yeah. And then there's like a really funny kind of weird dubbing moment where you hear Kelly's LeBrock
Oh,
voice, and she's like, "Oh, I forgot to lock the door."
yes. Which I don't know. I don't know how that cannot be intentionally comedic.
That's got to be I mean, that's got to be a joke in the script. That's got to be like, I mean, the script writer, Steve Mackay. That's got to be like he's put that in as a joke, like the Oscar stuff. That's got to be
Yeah.
like jokes that are like meant to be jokes. I mean, there's lots of unintentionally funny things in this movie, but I think that's deliberately for laughs.
There's also a weird moment right after that, right before they pick up with LeBrock and Seagal on the freeway or whatever. But there's like just a shot of a horse running out of the like ranch area around the house or whatever, and like some uplifting music, as if that animal's been set free or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was weird. That was weird. I think there's actually a couple of weird little moments in that sequence where they're like all these gunmen are like chasing after them, trying to chase them down. And I noticed like one of the henchmen, like maybe he thought like, this is my moment to have some camera time. He just does like a random like commando roll under a fence to get to the other side of the fence, and I was just like, was that necessary? I don't know. Maybe it was. Maybe.
There's no telling. Then we get the best, just another amazing leap of logic with Seagal and LeBrock pulling off the freeway and just pulling up to some Latino, seeming like they're gangsters, I guess.
Yeah, seeming like they're maybe drug dealers or something. Like that's the implication. Some sort of gangbangers or some sort of thing like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're just hanging around there. I think it looks like it's a Camaro, and Seagal just pulls up and says like, "Oh, what do you think of my Coche, my car?" And then they're like, "Oh, how hot is it?" And he's like, "Really hot." And they're like, "You want to?" "Yeah, okay." And they just trade cars.
Yeah, and apparently the bullet holes are a real selling point because one of the guys off screen says, "Cool, it looks like it's been in a war."
Yep.
So, yep, that trade works. Yeah. So again, this movie completely ignores any sort of logic once again, and we go off, and then they kind of this is the point where they go undercover as estate agents and retrieve the film that's needed to implicate Senator Trent, which is again completely ridiculous. And I liked again, there's some weird moments with kind of essentially extras in this movie, like the woman who owns the house, like after Steven Seagal like rips the hole in her wall to get the film footage, because it's lucky that it's just his cameras stayed there in the ice box for 7 years. Good luck for that. But then he just rips this hole in the wall to get it, and then blames it on the poor construction of the construction workers are doing a job on our house. But then she just walks out the house and just stares at them both in like odd bemusement, but doesn't say anything. It's just it's a bit of a weird scene.
Yeah, it seems like she is gonna like say something to them or confront them, and then she just kind of lets them go, and you're like, okay, they just ripped a hole in your wall.
Yeah.
And the camera though looks like a different camera, like because
it looks slightly smaller, doesn't it?
It looks like a Super 8 camera. I couldn't tell if it was or not because in the beginning, in the very beginning, it has that huge VHS camera.
Yeah. It's like the camera has like evolved with the technology of the day. It's like he put away a 1983 camera, he retrieved a 1990 camera.
That's how it works, I guess.
That's if you put something in an ice box, it follows the technology of the time. Yeah, again, I feel like this is if you're listening to this and you don't know, I host another podcast, New Horror Express. We sometimes cover guilty pleasure movies, and I often mention on those episodes where we do that we've probably put more thought into this than the people who made the movie, and I feel like we're getting to that stage now, Kyle.
Oh, we definitely are. Yeah, there's no doubt.
we have entirely done too much research. We're thinking entirely too deeply about this.
They couldn't even be bothered to like use the same props. Like what? A camera's a camera. What does it matter?
Oh dear, that's what it is. Anyway, at this point, yes. So at this point, they go to the hotel to meet up with his son.
Yes.
That doesn't go to plan because the various corrupt cops again get wind of this, again assemble a kill team very quickly, and head off to the hotel. But Mason Storm, being the badass that he is, once again escapes, and again we get another great patented Steven Seagal moment where he kicks a guy through a glass pane and then throws him through another glass pane.
Yes.
So he's already, again, second work, we should mention again, this is only his second movie, and he's already establishing his trademarks.
Yeah, he's already just smashing through the top. Everything is over the top.
It's like you're in a Steven Seagal movie. You're gonna have some bones snapping. You're gonna have some wrists and arms breaking. You gotta be throwing people through glass panes. You gotta have that ponytail. You gotta have a daft character name. Couple of cheesy one-liners, and it's already the blueprint has already been firmly established. 2 movies in.
What a blueprint. And I read this was the debut of the Seagal ponytail.
I read that as well. And I was like, he doesn't have the ponytail? And I was like, was like, I've got to rewatch Above the Law, or, just to check that. I was like, I
just thought he always had it.
Yeah, I just thought he always had it. I was convinced he had it in that movie, but now I just have to. I've got to rewatch that now just to confirm that this is actually true. That the ponytail officially makes its debut here, and he's not always had it.
So then we have the chase to Chinatown, right?
Yeah, we have the second car chase where they because Steven Seagal can do what he wants. He just jumps in the car, steals the car. Again, no repercussions. Guy complains about it, says, "You can't do that." Well, you've not been in a Steven Seagal movie, sir. He actually can.
And they have to go to Chinatown because it's the only appropriate place to have, kind of a final martial arts fight with all these henchmen.
Yes, and he manages to. Here again, we get another hilarious run. We need more run. I think there is more run. I'm sure. I remember like running and Out for Justice. I'm sure there's more running to come. So there'll be more running chat in other episodes. I am sure, but we get more of that, and he beats up a guy and throws him in a dumpster. That's fun. And then we have like the only semi-decent like fight. Yeah. I mean, like, and I say fight because like the rest of the quote-unquote fights is just Steven Seagal destroying people. But the one henchman, Quintero, played by Native American actor Branscombe Richmond, he manages to give Steven Seagal something of a fight, by which I mean he manages to push him into a food market stall, and he manages to get one clean hook on him, and that's it.
And they managed to destroy that poor man's small business.
Oh yeah,
entirely. Oh, and then Steven Seagal kills him and puts takes a big oversized some kind of Chinese painted mask and drops it over his face.
Yes, it is. Again, it's another weird moment, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, he's just like, just before that, he's like, the guy exposes his wrist, and he's like, "I remember you," and Quintero was the guy he broke his wrist at the start of the film, like after getting shot twice. Let's remember he got shot twice, then broke his wrist. So then he just like breaks his wrist again before killing him.
And there's a weird there's like just one moment of a pause when he knocks, before he kills him, he knocks him to the ground, and Seagal's son is there, and he just kind of like tussles his hair and then like goes back to the fight.
Yeah, that's right, man. Oh, that's fun. That's fun stuff. Yeah, there's another like little weird moment as well where like Steven Seagal's son, who is remarkably calm about finding out his father is alive despite thinking for 7 years that he was dead, we find out. You know, like that's we didn't mention that. Like there is a scene at an airport where like O'Malley has his kind of last stand. O'Malley sadly dies, but he goes out with a bang because he like Steven Seagal is again very hard to kill, and he gets shot twice. But after getting shot twice, still manages to smash a guy's head in with a wrench. And then no, it's like a tire iron. It's not a wrench. But anyway, but then succumbs to his wounds.
Yeah, his superior state of mind did not win out, unfortunately. They also have the great little bit where he's talking about how they're like all gonna go fishing together when this is over.
That's right.
Like that's the dream.
Okay, and again, Sonny is Steven Seagal's son. He reacts weird about this, just kind of like, wow, that sounds a great fishing trip with my dad that I thought I was dead. But yes, there is another weird moment when directly after killing Branscombe Richmond's character and laying that Chinese mask on him, Steven Seagal goes to Senator Trent's house. But before that happens, he leaves his son with Kelly LeBrock's character, Nurse Andy, and Sonny like asks her like who she is, and she says, "Oh, that's a long story. That's a long story," and the only, which seems perfectly normal. Just saying the lines like that seems perfectly normal. But Kelly LeBrock says all of her lines in this weirdly seductive way, which is like, makes it seem like she's also creeping on to the kid. I don't know. Was that just me?
No, that was there. And I think that's just to underline the virility of Steven Seagal. Like, even his child is just arousing.
Oh dear. Yeah, that's a Steven Seagal rewrite as well. It's like, oh yes, I'm so potent that my offspring beam out erotic energy, and then we're hurtling towards the end of the movie. Basically, there's not that many. Basically, Steven Seagal has killed most of the characters in the movie by this stage. So there's really not that many henchmen kicking about by this stage. There is a few. There is the doctor assassin killer, the fake doctor assassin killer. He's still alive. There is a kind of police captain who is a corrupt police captain who's talking shit about Steven Seagal at the start of the movie that O'Malley got very angry about. And there's like a couple other guys who there's like maybe 2 or 3 other guys who we've not seen before. Again, talking about not Steven Seagal running so much, but again, talking about like weird moments in this movie. There is a very just randomly fun scene where there's like a small, like, to get to Senator Trent's house, to kind of sneak into Senator Trent's house, there's like a small hedge that he can just walk over, but he just does this weird skip jump over it. It just seems like, that's oddly unnecessary.
Just trying to spice it up, I guess.
Yeah. This is like, I'm being stealthy. This is what stealthy people do.
There's also the moment, like right before that, Sadler is in a jacuzzi with some model woman, and they find out Storm is coming, and he's just like, get out. We're not going to the ballet.
Oh, yeah. Just like, get the fuck out of here.
Which that just reminds us that there's not enough Sadler in this movie.
No, they're really not. He's only like peppered throughout the movie, and he's only really in a couple of scenes. That scene at the start, and then there's like a weird scene kind of in the middle where, like, again, they're just like talking in public about their evil plans, like beside a billboard of "Do the Right Thing," so we know what year we're in. But there's not enough Sadler in the movie.
No.
So what happens? What happens next, Kyle? He gets into the house.
Yeah, and the guys are playing pool, right?
Yeah, this is after the liquor store scene. This is probably the most fun fight scene, I think.
Yes, I don't remember how this fight scene went down exactly, so I'm going to let you lead us through that.
Well, one of the basically. Again, Steven Seagal has to prove how hard he is. So he comes in with a gun, and they're all standing around about to play pool. And he's like, "Oh, can I play?" And then he's like, "Oh, I suppose if I've got this, I can't play. I'll be fair. I'll put this away." So again, just to prove how hard he is, he puts his gun away. And he comes and he's like, "Come on, guys, let me play pool." It's basically what he's saying. And then a couple of the guys kind of come at him, and he throws those guys around. But what makes it fun is one of the henchmen like snaps his pool cue in half, and then does this kind of martial art kind of whoa, and throws it about. It's like this, a scene in Indiana Jones, but with like split pool cues instead of swords, and then obviously Steven Seagal destroys that guy in 3 seconds, and then the kind of henchman that hates him the most, who's been kind of constantly doing that kind of villainy thing of like, "Oh, that Storm," who's played by an actor called Charles Boswell, very amusingly, and his character name is Jack Axel. Everybody's got great names in this movie.
Oh, that's a shame that they don't say his name in the movie.
They never say his name. His name is Jack Axel. Max Quintero, Jack Axel, Mason Storm. Man. I love that the gangster's called Calabrese as well. That's such a generic.
Yes. Well, I love that Seagal says every like ethnic name. He tries to say it like that. Like he tries to say Calabrese with like a Italian accent.
Oh yeah. He says every ethnic name with like a cod accent, where he's like Calabrese,
and you're like, what are you doing?
Just like, why? Stop it, Seagal. Stop it. Anyway, he kills that guy in like spectacular fashion, where he just like rams half a sharpened pool cue into his throat, and then just boots him right in the throat. Which apparently in was one of the things that was like kind of cut from the movie in the original UK VHS release. There was a few cuts. Yeah. There was a couple.
And he has like a really extreme line after that too. I can't remember it now, but it's something like "That's for killing my wife" or something.
Yes, I think that's I think that basically is the line. Or it's like that's for killing my wife, or that's for killing my family. Directly after he just smashes him with his boot.
Yeah.
And then you just see the guy kind of bleed out, with this pool cue stuck in his throat, and that's the end of him. And then we get, again, another incident of like this movie's kind of weird moments, because at some point, Steven Seagal as Mason Storm has the time and opportunity to do some random graffiti around the house, because the corrupt police captain lifts up a toilet lid and it reads, "The anticipation of death is worse than death itself." Like in, like, I don't know, like pink felt tip pen or something, pink like marker pen on the back. Like, and it's like, when did he have the time to do this? 2, how did he know he would need the toilet before he killed him?
Yeah, 3, when you're in this mansion with a killer Steven Seagal and you're searching for him, why would you check the toilet?
So many questions. He then, of course, runs out the bathroom like, holy shit, Mason Storm must be in the house. And then, again, more random graffiti. There's like a wall that just says, you're next. And Mason Storm has a weird sense of humor. It's just like, you know what would make this so much better if I just scare the guy to death by just kind of being like, oh, you're going to die. And then he even does that as well. He like hides and he says something about the anticipation of death as well. He like shouts out to the guy so he can't see him.
Which is weird too, because this guy is the last henchman before he gets to Sadler. And you would think you would use all this intimidation and like stuff for the actual main villain of the thing.
Yeah, you would think so, but no, it's number 2 gets it, but then he just doesn't. Yeah, and then the number 2 kind of weasels his way out of it and being like, I wasn't there when your family was killed. Okay, I'm not going to kill you now. Sure.
That's all I guess that's all the other henchmen had to do was just.
Yeah, just be like, yeah, I wasn't there that night. I had a night off from being evil.
I was actually watching the Oscars.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have been impressed by that. There would have been a scene where he had like a pop quiz of like, who won the 1983 Best Picture? And if they knew, they'd be like, all right, cool, you live.
Oh, that would have been so much better if all that graffiti was like, who was Best Actor? Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, so he basically just kind of cuffs him, and then he goes to get Senator Trent, and then they play a kind of weird game of hide and seek, where he's like, "Oh, are you under the bed? Are you behind this curtain?"
And then he's in the closet.
He's in the closet. Again, apparently, this was another moment in the movie that was edited out. The original British release, the moment where he takes the shotgun off of Senator Trent and then shoves it real hard in his mouth and you see blood around his lips. Apparently that was another edit in the original VHS release.
That makes sense. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah, it does seem like most of the action is quite cheesy, but it's like a proper kind of nasty moment. Kind of takes you back a little bit. It doesn't seem that extreme in terms of gore, in terms of we've seen much worse in terms of arm breaks and stuff like that, but it just seems like a kind of real nasty little moment. You're like, oh, it doesn't quite fit tonally, but okay.
I mean, it fits with the taunting earlier.
It does.
Seagal is like just turning into a slasher villain at that point.
Yes, no, that's very true. He is gone full horror villain mode at this point. Yeah, and then we get more weird taunting and more dick-sized talk as he shoots just below Senator Trent's crotch and then goes, "Oh, I missed. I never miss. They must have been smaller than I thought." Ha 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 ha. Again, yes. I feel like that's something that was like, of all the kind of unintentionally funny moments, I feel like that was an intentional, supposed to be funny moment. It's just kind of like, yeah, guys, like we're really over this.
Yeah, it feels like once you've gone on this long of a revenge mission for people that murdered your wife and kid, that you wouldn't be joking anymore.
No, you would think so, but by this stage, that this would be the point. The movie gets real serious, and then that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what we get a cameo from Ernie Lively, who's cameos in lots of action pictures. It's kind of person you kind of know the face of, don't necessarily know the name of, and he says, "Oh, we've all seen the tape." After they go through this big rigmarole where it looks like they're telling Mason to drop the gun and all that, and then they're like, actually, we've seen the tape. We know what the script is. We've just come to arrest Senator Trent." Which is
a weird moment, and and then you're also like, well, I guess Seagal didn't have to kill all these people. He could have just let the cops take care of it.
Yeah, and that's it. It's like a weirdly anticlimactic end. After all the murder, the number two gets off. The chief villain, well, I mean, he gets arrested. Steven Seagal is obviously, the police just ignore all the dead bodies strewn around that Steven Seagal has obviously killed, and is allowed to just walk on free with Kelly LeBrock and his son, as they apparently are going to go on vacation, and then that's the end of the movie.
They're going to go fishing.
They're going to go fishing. That's right. And then the movie ends on just like a really weird note where, like, after Senator Trent gets arrested, like the camera like pulls out and we see somebody watching the videotape of Senator Trent giving the order to kill the senator that he's replaced, that happened at the start of the movie. And then that's just it. We cut to credits, and it's a really weird ending. And it's the one thing that probably they should have kept in the movie from the original edit, because apparently the original ending ends on a funeral for O'Malley. They're all at a funeral for O'Malley, which kind of makes a lot more sense, because like O'Malley is just never heard nor talked about again after his heroic death. And yeah, it just seems weird. That does seem weird that they edited that out of the movie to end it on just like this kind of like, well, we've run out of time, folks. That's it. Your movie is ended.
I guess it makes sense tonally though, because then it's kind of like more of a downbeat ending, even though he's succeeded. If you're going to the guy's funeral, I don't know. But there's also that TV monitor. There's some TV guy there, and he said he has some pun about Storm. I can't remember what it was now, but he says something about like,
oh yeah,
he makes a pun on his name.
Yeah, I can't remember. There is some sort of pun on his name. I can't remember what that was now. Oh, damn. Well, if you've recently watched the movie and you want to review the podcast, please leave that line in your review so we can all remember what that pun was. And that's it. We've come to the end of our very first episode of All 90s Action All the Time. So, yeah. Thanks, Kyle, for helping us guide us through this movie. Do you want to give a quick before we head on out a quick best and worst before the end?
Best and worst moments?
Yes.
Definitely. I mean, for me, best moment is the line I mentioned about the undermanned, outgunned, superior state of mind is the best. The worst moment, I'm gonna have to think. You'll edit this out. I feel like all the worst moments are the best moments.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I was trying to think of my worst moment. I was like, even the bad moments are funny. Like even the fact that the film just comes to a standstill in the middle and like nothing happens for ages, even that's kind of weirdly entertaining, of being like, is the plot going to happen again? Like, are we just are we just going to watch him train? What's going on? I mean, this running is funny, but like I do, it's not a story.
No, I feel like it's still not the worst moment, but probably when Kelly LeBrock says pussy and puts the kitten on.
Oh yeah.
Just because you're like, oh come on, like what a lame excuse to use that word just to get that moment in there.
Yeah,
but it's still great.
Yeah, I think so. I think like if I was to pick a worst moment, it is probably the ending. Like every time, I always forget how anticlimactic the end of this movie is, and I just like it just like stops. The movie just kind of gives in. It's just like, yeah, well, we're not going to kind of wrap it up. Like I feel like the O'Malley kind of funeral scene from the original cut, wherever that may be, that might have kind of wrapped up the story. Whereas this just feels like, yeah, well, like it's just go home, folks. That seems to be the end of the movie. I think talking about like best moments, which are also hilariously terrible. I think it's got to be. I think it's got to be the taking you to the bank, the blood bank. I think it's just.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you to the bank, Senator Trent. And I think it's a dramatic pause between Senator
Yes.
Trent and then the blood bank.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
That level of over the topness is just, it's the best.
And that's it. That's your very first episode of All 90s Action All the Time. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out. 5 stars, please. And we'll keep coming at you with various action movies. On the next episode, we are going to look at Marked for Death, another Steven Seagal film from 1990. So tune into that next time. Until then, though, see ya.